Joining me now is Republican Congresswoman Liz Cheney of Wyoming. Congresswoman Cheney, welcome back to Meet the Press.
Thank you, Jeff.
Look, I know you disagree with the withdrawal decision sort of overall, but let's focus short term here for a moment. The National Security Advisor did say if the president gets advice that more resources are needed to get Americans out, then he would be open to that. Given the situation, should that be the next course of action?
We have to ensure that we get every American out, and we have to ensure that we get out the Afghans who helped us. That's our duty. That's our responsibility. As you pointed out, Chuck, what we're watching unfold on the ground is a complete catastrophe. And to hear the National Security Advisor say, well, it's a little complexity, a little turbulence, or to suggest this is simply a civil war is fundamentally at odds with reality. Our mission in Afghanistan was to deny terrorists a sanctuary. And the Biden decision now to completely withdraw has handed them an entire country, has in fact ensured not just the Taliban, but al-Qaeda, ISIS, the Haqqani network, terrorist organizations that want to attack the United States now have an entire country as a sanctuary from which to do so.
Is the Taliban a direct threat to the United States or not? That has been a
Absolutely.
dispute. What makes you say that?
Absolutely. Well, we know, the facts make me say it. We know that the Taliban has never renounced al-Qaeda. And this is one of the things that was such an indefensible step by the Trump administration when President Trump and Secretary of State Pompeo decided that they were going to sign a surrender agreement with the Taliban, decided they were going to begin to negotiate with the
President Trump's own national security advisor. I was going to actually play that clip for you. H.R. Haldeman.
McMaster.
McMaster. I've done that a few times. Been around this town too long, I guess. And he basically accused Secretary of State Pompeo at the time and the president, and he called it a surrender agreement.
It is.
Why do you call it a surrender agreement?
Absolutely. Because we sat down and negotiated with terrorists because we completely excluded the Afghan government from those negotiations. We gave credibility to the Taliban. Secretary Pompeo told us that the Taliban was going to renounce al-Qaeda. They told us that the Taliban was going to fight terrorists. They forced the Afghan national government, we did, to release 5,000 prisoners. So we completely undercut the Afghan national government. We absolutely emboldened the Taliban. And we know now from public reporting that at the moment that agreement was signed, the Taliban went to members of the Afghan National Army and said, the Americans are leaving you, and you should lay down your arms when the time comes, or we'll kill you and your families. So that led directly to the catastrophe that we're seeing today.
Do you think President Biden could have gotten out of that agreement? He feels as if that it would have been that we'd have paid a high price, maybe even with more attacks on our soldiers on the ground.
I think there's no question. President Biden is the president of the United States, and he's had no problem in reversing course on other things. He decided he's going to rejoin the JCPOA. He decided he's going to rejoin the Paris Climate Accord. He's reversed a number of decisions of the Trump administration. So in this circumstance where absolutely the U.S. national security requirement was to maintain a presence on the ground, to help to, frankly, embolden and train the Afghans who were bearing the brunt of this and fighting for us, President Biden ignored the advice of his military leadership and decided instead he's going to withdraw. And all you have to do is look at what is unfolding today. Look at that interview we just heard. The fact that we're now somehow relying on the Taliban to protect Americans, and the White House is denying what we know is happening on the ground, which is that Americans are being beaten, they're being prevented from getting to the gates of the airport, and they are probably being held hostage.
10 years ago, we had a poll that showed over 70% of Americans thought that we were more likely that this is going to end without being able to leave a stable democracy in Afghanistan. In some ways, the American public sort of foresaw this a decade ago. The American public now, even as they don't like what they see on the ground, 60% say this isn't worth it. That seems to be why there's no political support with 4 presidents in a row have tried to get out because the public's not been with them. Isn't that fundamentally why we're getting out?
I think I actually look at it the other way, Chuck, that we need to have leaders who will tell the public what's necessary, who will help to explain why, in fact, we need to have a presence on the ground in Afghanistan. So when you've got 3 presidents in a row having said we have to get out, I don't think
even President Bush was trying to find a way out, as we're now learning in an IG report.
I don't think that there's any question, but that we have to maintain, we needed to maintain a presence on the ground. 3,500 forces, counterterrorism operations, counterintelligence operations. That that allowed us to have the kind of assurance that the Taliban would not, in fact, take over as they have done, and create now a brand new safe haven. And again, it's not just the Taliban; it's the Haqqani network, it's Al Qaeda. You've got ISIS. You have, the very groups, particularly Al Qaeda, that attacked us 20 years ago from bases in Afghanistan, now back into a position where they can do the same again.
It does seem as if President Biden's going to pursue a strategy, a counterterrorism strategy that's similar to what both of the Obama and the Trump administration started to do late there, and how we go after enclaves in Syria and how we go after enclaves in Africa. Is that possible in Afghanistan?
No, right now, no. I mean, look, if you look at where we are today and you look at the damage that this decision has done, it's not just damage in Afghanistan, it's damage globally for the United States. Look at what the members of the British Parliament have been saying about us over the course of the last week. Look at what our NATO allies are saying about us, the arrangements they're now making, frankly, in some cases, excluding us. We have to, as a nation, recognize evil in the world. When you see mothers standing outside those gates handing their babies off, that's because they know the Taliban is evil. And as Americans, we have to say we must fight that and we must defend ourselves against future attacks.
But was nation building a step too far? I mean, was that, in some ways, I understand you have to build some institutions if you want to create that stability, but it didn't work in Vietnam, it didn't work here.
Look, you have to build those institutions. I think that's exactly the point. And I think we have to be very specific. There's no question that there were mistakes, there were strategies that were pursued that didn't work, strategies that were pursued that didn't have the resources they needed. But for the United States to be in a position where we need to ensure Afghanistan is not a safe haven, that means that we've got to provide the support necessary to continue to have the Afghans bear the brunt of the fight. It means that we've got to help to build the institutions that can withstand, the Al-Qaeda and the Taliban threat that continues. So this isn't about building, a democracy that looks like the United States. It's about what can we do to maintain stability so that we don't have further terrorist attacks from Afghan soil.
Unfortunately, I'm out of time. Congresswoman Liz Cheney, I'd love to get you back here, talk a little bit about that January 6th committee that
look
you're working
forward to
on
it.
as well. Appreciate you coming on and sharing your
Thanks,
perspective
Chuck.
with us. Thank you.
Hey, thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.